I've made some changes to my room. I hope you like it. It definitely looks better than the drab wall that hasn't been painted for 30 years. Something behind me. So it's nice. It looks good, doesn't it? I think so. Okay. Today I'm going to answer more of these questions that I've gotten from my brother, and we're getting into the tough ones now. So I'm going for this one here, which is, what will 5D reality feel and look like? What will be different to what we are experiencing now? Is wisdom easier to access? Do we all access our knowing? Do we have real awareness of our higher self? So the relevance of this question is this idea that we're heading towards an ascension. And we are 3-4D beings now, and we're going to ascend to a 5D reality. And the Earth itself is going to ascend, and the human race, those who are in an energetic state, which is appropriate for ascension, they will ascend. So it's going to be kind of a new paradigm for humanity, a new paradigm for the Earth. So my brother's wanting to understand, what is it going to feel like? Like in a tangible sense. I'm assuming that's what he means. In a tangible sense, literally, how will it be experienced? What will it be like looking around, the way things work, how it feels, how it smells, so on? What would it be like? Okay, so repeat that. What will 5D reality feel and look like? What will be different to what we are experiencing now? Is wisdom easier to access? Do we all access our knowing? Do we have real awareness of our higher self? This is a tough one. It's a real tough one. Okay, but let's do it and see what happens. Hydrate, very helpful. Okay. Greetings and thank you for the questions and the challenge. You would like to know specifically what 5D reality will feel and look like, how shall it be experienced, and what will be the changes in your ability to access wisdom, to have a knowing of self, and to be realized into the higher self and definition. Let's start by saying that when 5D reality becomes the new paradigm, then you shall also be a fifth dimensional being. And as a fifth dimensional being, having a fifth dimensional reality experience, the impact shall not be as much as perhaps you think it will be. When considering it from the third dimensional perspective, it shall be dramatically different. However, you shall no longer be a three-dimensional being having a three-dimensional experience. You shall be a fifth-dimensional being having a fifth-dimensional experience. And so, you will be calibrated to the matrix. And as you will be calibrated to the matrix, it shall seem organic and within the realm of feasibility. However, we understand that you asked this question from the perspective of a third-dimensional being. And so from that perspective, yes, it shall be dramatically different. It's also worth noting that to earthlings that were alive 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 years ago, you now, while still a three-dimensional being, is markedly different. From the perspective of these early humans, you are statuesque, you are more handsome, more beautiful, more intelligent, more worldly, more capable of managing your emotions, being able to feel more deeply, a greater sense of empathy, and in a way you would seem to them to be angelic, to be special, to be glowing. And yet, both of you are three-dimensional beings within the three-dimensional matrix. So we make this point because it is a continuous transition. It is a spectrum. And as humans move through the illusion of linear time, the transition into a higher reality state is continuous, moving along the spectrum. And when the threshold is crossed into fifth dimensional reality, the paradigm of experience and the paradigm of self shall transform. And what will be most profoundly noticed at first will be the sense of unity, will be this new found brotherhood, sisterhood, kinship with all other human beings. When you are in an environment where you have the opportunity to be in close proximity to people you have not acquainted with before, it will not be a sense of, there goes a stranger, as it has been in the past. Someone that I have no interest in, someone that I do not interact with, somebody that is going about their day as I go about my day. It shall be instead a sense of family. It will be an opportunity to reflect to each other the deep love and understanding that you are connected as one humanity. This will be the most profound experience in the early stages of the fifth dimensional reality. Because humanity, in its transition to the fifth dimensional reality, will become more aware of its integration into the one being, the humanity being. And it shall be felt very intimately, because you shall literally be awakened to a connection and an understanding that you are the one being, the humanity being. And when this transition has occurred, the conflicts and evils and disagreements that are violent in nature or that are hostile will, in the most part, cease to exist, because it will be a sense of being angry and wishing to do harm to oneself. And with a greater sense of understanding, a greater awareness of self, and a diminished and completely absent desire to harm the self, coupled with this new awareness that each of your fellow humans is an extension of self, is another form of self, is another aspect of the one being which you are part of, the humanity being. There shall also be an evaporation, a disintegration, a complete absence of any desire that culminates in conflict with another human being for this reason, because you will perceive them as they perceive you, which is as the one being, the humanity being. There shall still be disagreement, because of course there will be a diversity of ideas, a diversity of ways of thinking, but diverse not in the way humans think diversely now, where there is a separation more so between light and dark, but instead the diversity of ideas will be in different ways of expressing the light, different ways of perceiving the whole through the eyes of the one. So it shall be disagreement as a form of cooperation to arrive at a agreement regarding the different ways there are to exist, the different ways there are to solve problems. And so it shall be disagreement, but disagreement as a process of collaboration, as a process of mutual solution. In the fifth dimensional experience, there shall be a greater access to your infinite wisdom, a greater access to your knowing, and becoming more realized as the fifth dimensional higher self that you are. But again, we point out that it is a spectrum. It is a transition. So in the fifth dimensional matrix, there is a potential, and that potential takes time to be fully accessed, to be fully realized, to be fully potentiated to the point where there is no more growth possible within that dimensional reality. And at that time, for humans to become more greatly realized as the one, they would need to expand beyond the fifth dimension into another higher dimensional realm, where there is a greater access to more potential, so that there is the continuation of the realization of the one, of the ultimate, of the all. And so this transition that is on the horizon is coming because humanity has reached a point where for there to be continued substantial growth, it cannot continue within the 3D matrix, within the 3D reality, the 3D way of existing, because the potential has been used. Humanity has made it all the way to the end of the spectrum. And now, for humanity to continue to expand into greater realization of itself as the one, and the one being an infinite being, then humanity needs access to more of infinity, to more of this potential field, which is the one. And so a transition must occur. And that transition will be a transition into what is called, on your planet, the fifth dimension. And when this threshold is crossed, once again, opening up in front of all of humanity, will be a new field of potential, a new realm of access to the infinity of the one. And so what shall begin again is the process of transitioning across the spectrum, fulfilling and expanding into more of the realization, understanding of the self as the one, until once again the entire matrix of available understanding, realization of the one has been fully utilized, has been fully exploited, and the capacity of the fifth dimension will no longer be able to contain the burgeoning human, the growing human, the human which is ready to cross another threshold into an opportunity to greater realize itself as the one. And that shall be the time when humanity crosses from the fifth dimension into the sixth dimension. And so it continues. And so when humanity crosses into the fifth dimension, there will be a releasing of new potential. There will be the introduction of availability of new ways of being, of greater sophistication. And that shall develop and grow over time, over a very long time, as humanity continues to transition through the spectrum of the fifth dimension of potential, greater realizing itself as the infinite one. We shall focus more on the beginning stages of this, because the question is implying what is going to happen to those who cross the fifth dimension, these generations currently alive on Earth right now, when they crossed into the fifth dimension. What shall be their experience? What shall be the changes at the very early stages of this transition into this new spectrum of beingness? Much of the changes shall come from this new realization and understanding that humanity is a one being, and that each human being is part of the greater whole, is like a neuron in the brain of humanity, and is intimately connected to each and every other human being. And through this connectiveness will be released the potential that comes when many parts unify in recognition that they are the one, and then their potential as a single unit becomes accessible to every individuation of that unit. So, for example, the combined intellect of billions of people, the combined extrasensory abilities such as wisdom, intuition, telepathy, telekinesis, these abilities which are known to be unique among some rare humans, will become accessible to all of humanity. And so when a human being decides to be creative, they shall not be limited by their own intellect, but instead will be able to draw upon the intellect, the creativity, the wisdom, the intuition of the entire humanity being of which they are a part. And so the culture of Earth, the culture of the human, shall go through an explosive renaissance, which will be beyond what anyone could anticipate. Each human being will have the creative capacities of the greatest creative masters that have lived on your planet until this time. The Mozarts, the Picassos. Each human shall have creative ability which is beyond what you have seen from the great masters, because humanity will be the master. The humanity being shall become the artist. The humanity being shall become expressed itself through each individuation, which is the single human. And so the culture of humanity will become incredibly rich and diverse and beautiful, and magnificent and sophisticated. And then this principle shall extend across all fields of human endeavour. Scientifically, now humans that have an interest in science will have at their core, at their availability, the intellect and the scientific curiosity of not just themselves, but also of all of humanity, of the humanity being. And they shall be an individuation of the humanity being, bringing forth great scientific discoveries. And technology shall advance very, very rapidly. And no longer shall there be just small isolated areas on the Earth's surface where there are teams of scientists that are developing specific types of technologies. But instead it will be an explosion of this type of investigation, an explosion of new technologies, of improvements to the way that humanity is able to use science, technology, the human field, travelling into other regions of space. All of this shall be explosively changed, transformed. And then shall also all fields of human endeavour, such as politics, such as understanding consciousness, the social fabric of communities, all fields of human endeavour will go through a period of intense change. And these changes will continue for some time, for hundreds of years. There will be continuous, massive change until humanity has fully calibrated with the fifth dimensional experience, has caught up in a sense. Because in these first periods, in these first couple of centuries, first few generations, there will be a period of intense change. And during this period of intense change, it will be a form of, it could be said, calibration, where the human being, having arrived into the fifth dimension, with still the ways of the third dimension, will begin to expand into the potential, will begin to catch up to what is already accessible. And this period of intense change will continue for perhaps a couple of centuries, until humanity will then be calibrated into what's possible for their level of progress through the spectrum of the fifth dimension, as it expands into the potential of further realization of self as the one. And during this time, there will also be an expansion of the humanity being into the galactic community. Humanity will be introduced into many different federations, organizations, memberships, where humanity will be given the opportunity to understand who they now are. Because what will be unique about this birthing of this new human being is that it shall happen so rapidly that humanity will find itself in this threshold, in this new paradigm of greater access, greater understanding of potential that has arrived so rapidly that humanity will, in a way, take some time to fully understand the potential that it possesses, to fully become cognizant and exploitive of this new potential. And so there will be much interest from organizations, the intergalactic organizations, that wish to help the human, this new birthing, this new gem of existence, which is unprecedented, to fully become awakened to the potential it now has access to. So if you can imagine this metaphor, it is like the poor person that comes from generations of poor people, that has no experience in the familial history of ever being wealthy, And then one day they wake up and they are now amongst the wealthiest that have ever walked the earth. And yet they don't know. How do you live like a wealthy person? What do you do with the money? What is even possible? What is out there which can be enjoyed and explored with the money that I now have? When I have no reference, I have no historical data to draw upon to understand what it is that can be done. This will be the human experience, because the human will now be standing upon the treasures of the fifth dimension, and yet the transition would have happened so quickly that there is no historical data, there is nothing to draw upon to understand what it now means to be fifth dimensional, because for other sentience throughout the universe, generally the way this occurs is there is a slow transition, and as the transition occurs, the species itself has time, has the capacity to adapt, to calibrate, to continue to become evolving as they evolve into the new paradigm. But with the human experience and the earth experience, it shall be unprecedented. It shall be the first time that it has occurred so rapidly. And so humanity shall be standing in this new paradigm without an understanding of what it means to be fifth dimensional, what it means to have these new potentials. There will be things which the human being will be able to do, but have no idea that it can do it. And so there will be much guidance offered. There will be much desire by the community outside of the earth to be participants, to help the humanity being understand what it now possesses, understand what it now has at its potential. And this will be a process that will take perhaps a couple of 100 years. And during this time, many beings will come to earth and help the earthlings understand and appreciate what these capacities are. And the many human beings will have the opportunity to travel to other regions in space, to friendly planets, to societies and systems which have an interest and have been following the earth human for a very long time, to help them, to show them the way, to show them what is possible, to help them understand and develop these new capacities as a fifth dimensional being. And then at the end of this time, when the study has finished, shall we say, this new birthing, the school period, which is a good metaphor, because on your planet now the child goes through the schooling period, which lasts for 12, 13 years, and then can go longer if the child chooses to do additional study after schooling has concluded. Humanity shall go through this similar period, and this similar period could last for several generations, a couple of 100 years, and at the end of this, at the graduation of this period, humanity itself will then be ready to be the mentor to other planets, to other races that themselves are making transitions, that themselves are at the later stages of their third dimensional reality, ready to make their transition into the next dimensional realm. Humanity will then be ambassadorial to these planetary federations and become first contactees, to become those that channel and offer information into these societies before there is their first contact event, just as has occurred on your planet, where you are now channeling us, and we are not of the earth, yet we channel through you before your official first contact. As this occurs across your planet, thousands of people are having the same experience that you are having now. And so it shall be that at the end of this period, earthlings will then be the ambassadors. They will be the ones who are channeled through the body of other races when they themselves bring in wisdom and understanding into their societies, and it will be understood that it is being channeled, that it is information which is coming otherworldly, and that otherworldly presence shall be, in many cases, the earth human. And earth human will then be fully integrated into the planetary body and shall be one of the officials, one of the planets which is equal in vote, equal in influence to all others in this society. So as this transition occurs across the potential of the fifth dimension, until all of the potential of the fifth dimension has been exploited, has been expanded into, and the threshold needs to be crossed again into the next dimensional realm, just as the potential of the human being has been fully realized in the 3D experience, and it is now for the human to continue to expand, to continue to become more. It needs to cross the threshold into the next dimensional reality so it can continue to expand and realize as the infinite one. Then there shall be an increasing awareness of self as the higher self. There shall be a decreasing of physicality, a decreasing of the duality of existence, and there will be an increasing of the realization that the true essence of identity is the energetic being, is the infinite, immortal, invulnerable individuation of the love of the One. And as this transition continues, the earth human shall become less physicalized, shall become more energetic, until eventually, at the later stages of the fifth dimensional spectrum, at the later stages of this transition to the full expansion into the fifth dimensional potential matrix, there will be full transition into being an energetic being. And then having physical presence, physicality will be a choice, because the human being will be fully realized, will be fully understood of itself as the fifth dimensional higher self energetic. And having a physical presence will become a choice, will become not a necessity, a biological necessity for the fifth dimensional higher self to have a physical experience as it is now, in your reality now. For you to have a physical experience, you must incarnate into the apparatus, the mind, the body, the personality. It is essential to the process. It can't be done in another way. However, when you reach the ends, the later stages of expansion into the fifth dimension, this shall no longer be a necessity, but instead will be a choice, because it will be possible to be present in physical experience as an energetic, as the true essence of self, as the higher self. And you shall be able to be present as the energetic, but you will not be as a ghost. You will not be something which is there but nobody can detect. You shall be amongst your fellow humans. Some shall be in energetic form, some shall be in physical form, and yet you will all have full awareness of each other. You'll all still be able to have relationships, communications, cooperations, collaborations. It shall all still be possible, but the paradigm shall be different, because the energetic state, the density of energy in this realm will be so profound, the integration will be so profound also, so comprehensive, that the awareness of each other will be so intimate that whether somebody has a physical experience or just exists energetically will make no difference. And so, finally, shall we say, looking again at the question that was asked, there is, what we detect in that question, a curiosity about, shall it be an instantaneous recognition, understanding of self as the higher self. And to that we say, no. It shall not be an instantaneous, full recognition and understanding and knowing of the higher self. This shall be a process. As humanity expands into the potential of the fifth dimension, approaching the next threshold, where it will again transition across to the next dimension, where there is yet greater access to the potential of the Infinite One. And in this process, this transition across the spectrum, there will be the increasing realization of the higher self, of the true essence of self. However, understand that when this threshold from the 3D to the 5D is crossed, the access and understanding and realization and knowing of the true essence of self, of the fifth dimensional higher self being, will be profound from the perspective of the three-dimensional being. It will be a profound shift. So yes, in a way, you will be an instant master, because you will have a sense of knowing, a sense of realization of the higher self, of the true essence, which is markedly different to what is possible in the 3D experience. So, compared to the 3D experience, you shall be a master. You shall be an awakened master. However, the point that we make is, your potential is so infinite. Your capacities are so vast. You are a God. You are the God. You are the One. And so, even though when you transition into the fifth dimension, you will be a master beyond the profundity of any master that has lived before in the physical experience. However, in comparison to what you shall be at the end of this fifth dimension experience, when you approach the next threshold, you will be so much vaster that in the comparison, you will still be tiny. You will still be small. You will still be almost entirely unrealized, because you are an infinite being. So the point we want to make is that you are bigger than you can comprehend. You are more powerful than you can comprehend. You are more vast and more capable than you can comprehend. So, when discussing your new existence as the fifth dimension, it's important to make note of compared to what. Compared to the 3D experience, you will be like nothing you have experienced before. You will be profound in ways which are incredible, which are godlike. And yet, in comparison to who you shall be at the end of this fifth dimensional experience, when again humanity approaches the next threshold, you are nothing. You are a speck. You are a grain of sand. You are a fleck of dust. So, be excited. There is something very magnificent on the horizon for you, the humanity being, and for you, the individual human. It is a remarkable time, and it is not possible for us to communicate to you using the words and ideas and concepts available of exactly how remarkable it is going to be. Even ourselves are not entirely sure how it shall look, what it shall be like, because it is unprecedented. But we have seen enough, and we know enough to understand it is going to be incredible, profound beyond what has been known before. So we are excited to have you as our peers, to help you and guide you, and then one day to be side by side with you and to learn from you. So we love you, and we say with great anticipation, we look forward to meeting you as our loving family and equal.